Bleh. I saw in the news that Harley Flanagan is suing John Joseph. Okay, a little bit of backstory, and this is off the top of my head, and please, anybody correct me. Feel free to jump in and say, no, you got it wrong, blah, blah, blah. Leave something in the comments if I get something wrong. But as I recall, basically, you have the Age of Quarrel lineup is like the classic lineup for the Cro-Mags. That's John Joseph, Harley Flanagan, Doug Holland from Kraut, Mackie Jayson on drums, and Parris Mayhew on guitar. And that is like sort of like the everybody loves Age of Quarrel. That's like the nucleus of the band, so to speak. And that lineup was really only together for a very, very short period of time. And then after that, you had a variety of overlapping lineups. Like, for instance, John Joseph leaves, and then Harley ends up singing. And so then it's just Harley and Parris. And the nucleus of the music, of the creativity, is Parris and Harley. These two guys came together and they sort of made the stew that is the Cro-Mags in that kind of way. John Joseph, I guess he did write some lyrics. So John Joseph contributed lyrics to certain songs. It's a toss-up. I've seen certain places where it says that John Joseph was the first singer, but then I've seen Parris and other people say Eric Casanova is the first singer of the Cro-Mags. And then Harley did a demo. He did a demo where he was doing all the instruments. That predates everything. I don't know. You can go back and forth. I don't know either which way. So if you really want to do further reading into this, please feel free. This is just a casual overview of the situation, right? So you get these various different lineups happening, and then Parris leaves, and then John Joseph comes back, right? And then they do another album. I think that's the third album, right? So you got for a while it was Doug Holland and Harley Flanagan, and then alternating between Parris Mayhew and John Joseph. And then Parris finally, he came. I'm trying to remember this off the top of my head. So Parris left again. No, Parris left. John Joseph came, and then John Joseph left, and then Parris came back. John Joseph and Parris, as far as I know, they never worked together in the band again. After Age of Quarrel. Age of Quarrel was the last time that's why that lineup was like so special or something. And I don't know. So you have all these different lines, and then like the final break, there's like the final break with these guys, I guess, and like the original band or whatever you want to call it, is when Parris and Harley, they finally split in, I think it's 2000 or 2001. They recorded an album that ended up getting called Revenge, but Revenge was actually, and again, correct me if I'm wrong, I believe they had another name, which I'm not going to say because I know that like you can't even say it on Facebook, you get in trouble. Let's just put it this way. The name is White, and then Devil. That was the name of a band that featured both Harley and Parris, and they wrote music, and then that evolved back into doing Cro-Mags. And I think that material eventually turned into what's on Revenge, because I don't think there's an album of that stuff. I don't know. And then Parris and Harley split for the final time in 2001, and for a brief moment, John Joseph and Mackie come back, and they are performing under the name Cro-Mags once again. And then that split happens, and then Harley does a thing called Harley's War. And then you have, for many, many, many years, for almost a decade and a half, John Joseph is just going out as the Cro-Mags with Mackie on drums, and he's got the dude from Sick of It All and Leeway playing guitar and bass, and they just do. I don't know if they're doing more than maybe they're just only playing Age of Quarrel, or maybe they're playing more than that. I don't know. And I guess John Joseph, and again, I'm not John Joseph, I'm not any of these guys, by the way. I have to put that out there. I am not, I do not know, or I cannot speak for any of these people. Just want to, just a guy on the internet talking like everybody else. I believe, okay, so John Joseph starts performing as the Cro-Mags with Mackie, and I think it's, why would he do that without like the two guys who wrote like the music, and Harley started using the name, or however that happened, without either one of those guys, is it like really even the Cro-Mags? And that's always a debate. It's the same thing. We have the same thing with the Misfits, right? We always talk about, well, it's not really the Misfits without Glenn. You need Glenn and Jerry for it to be the Misfits, yada yada yada. The people in New York hardcore, they seem to have it's the same thing. It's the same argument. Oh, well, if you don't have this guy and you don't have this guy, then it's not the band. And it goes back to the idea of like, do you have a founding member? Do you have someone who wrote the music? Do you have the person who was the band leader, the band, the artistic direction? And I guess John Joseph was able to do what he did for so long because he was operating under the notion that he was the frontman singer of the band, despite the fact that he didn't really he wrote lyrics. That was it. Does that give... Is that enough? Is he considered a founding member? Is that enough for him to go out and perform those songs, with Mackie, because they represent 2 out of the 5 members of the classic lineup? I don't know. What I do know is that whole time you got Harley. I guess Harley, I don't know how long he was looking to do this, but at a certain point, he went back he took him to court. He took John Joseph and Mackie to court to get the name back. He wanted the name. And you could see him kind of like getting ready for that. He put out a solo album just called Harley Flanagan, and it was called Cro-Mag. And I think that was done on purpose because he's trying to establish some sort of ownership over the trademark, because the bottom line is John Joseph on some level has a case, in the sense that Harley Flanagan is performing under all these other names for whatever reason. And John Joseph is using the name Cro-Mags, and that he could then go to court and say, well, even if he is the owner, I'm the one that's been using the mark, and try and, fight Harley in that way, and win that case under those circumstances. How, concrete is that? I don't know. I'm not a lawyer. Is there any does that make any sense? I don't know. But there was an incident that happened in 2012, and that solo album I'm talking about, that came out a little bit later after what had happened in 2012. Basically, there was a CBGB festival. The Cro-Mags, John Joseph's Cro-Mags, were playing, and Harley went down with his 2 kids, and he was looking to make peace. So he claims he's looking to make peace. And yet then again, it turns into a Rashomon. That, what Rashomon is? Phenomenal movie by Akira Kurosawa, but it's like everybody has a point of view. It's the same thing with The Last Duel. What's that Ridley Scott movie that just came out? Really good film. I think it's called The Last Duel. Everybody's point of view is shaded a little bit differently than everyone else. And then somewhere in there is the actual truth, the actual unbiased truth of what happened. And depending on how you hear it, if you're asking John Joseph, Harley came into the dressing room to try and, attack him, and he had a knife, and they were able to, a bunch of guys took on Harley and stopped him from doing something with the knife. If you talk to Harley, if you've heard Harley's side of the story, Harley says he goes in there and he's literally jumped. There was some guy waiting behind the door. He got jumped, except here's the thing. Harley Flanagan is a tough motherfucker. I mean, the dude does, Brazilian jiu-jitsu. He's an instructor with what's it, Renzo Gracie, I think it's called. I mean, the guy is, he's a friggin' mad dog pit bull, dude. Like, he's ferocious, friggin' ferocious. So a bunch of guys go in on him, and even though it was like whatever, however many guys against one, Harley still manages, or I don't know if it was Harley's knife, it was somebody's knife. Harley manages to stab a dude. He also got stabbed in his leg. It was a mess, and Harley's like, I was fighting for my life. I believe he said that at some point. He was fighting for his life. He really felt like he was going to, something bad was going to happen. And so that's kind of like the whole rigmarole. Then he goes to jail. Harley went to jail for it, or he was locked up at least, and then he had to deal with that. And then he got out, he got remarried, and went back to court and won. He won the lawsuit. And then the whole time, and I never asked him about this personally. I really did try to sort of stay away from that stuff. I never asked Parris when I've chatted with him about this, but like, he's always just once he was out of it, man. It seems. He's like, he's vocal about it. He talks about it. He's like, I don't want anything to do with that. It's like, it's done. He loves, Parris loves chatting with Cro-Mags fans. And, I see people ask him questions all the time. He's always answering stuff and telling things as he remembers them from his perspective, and very logical, sort of factual when he discusses these things. And he's just sort of like, he's got a career doing, he works as a Steadicam operator. He's worked on a ton of shows. He was doing music videos with Drew Stone. Those guys used to do music videos together. He directed music videos, directed that typo negative video that blew up. And now he's got a new project. He was doing a project a long, long time ago. It was going to be called Blood for Papa. That was the name of it. And then what happened was he had oh God, what was it? It wasn't working out. The Blood for Papa wasn't working out. He was having trouble solidifying things in a way that he saw for his vision. I don't know. And then he ended up doing this thing called the Agros, and it's just sort of, it's pretty cool actually. It's, it's instrumental. It's just these long instrumental songs. And he may think that his music it's just instrumental music. He's just doing instrumental music and that's it. Like, it could be played live at a show, but I really feel like you need a visual, like, it's almost like he's scoring this visual element that you find in the music videos. They're not really telling a story or anything, but they're just like, I feel like you need the visual component to really appreciate what he's doing in his new project, the Agros. So he's happy doing his own thing. He's off doing his own thing. And that really just leaves like John. And he did an interview in Noisy, Parris did, where he sets the record straight. If you want to go read what Parris thinks about all this stuff, just go and take a look at that. One thing that was interesting from that interview is that he says that John Joseph came to him. He was like, hey, I want to write a new album. I want to get back together or something. I'm paraphrasing here. I don't know. It's not word for it. I want to get back together. Let's do something. And basically saying to Parris, like, needing Parris to write more Cro-Mags music, because one thing that is for certain, and it's quite obvious that John just wrote some lyrics, because those dudes, for whatever reason, because you got to imagine the guy from Sick of It All and Leeway, they're musicians. Like, why can't they write songs? Why can't they write, songs? By the way, I see all the comments, guys. I'm just trying to get through this. We'll go to the comments. We're going to go back through the comments afterwards. I'm just trying to stay on the straight and narrow here. You would think that those guys would have put out a Cro-Mags album. And I got to tell you, I'd imagine that Harley would have had a much harder time, securing that trademark. I bet you that really bit John Joseph in the butt. Because he's performing live, but he hasn't. I feel like you need to record music. And Harley, who has no problem recording music, he just cranks out songs like they're candy. So he recorded an album. He records his whole solo album, calls it Cro-Mag, and he in 2 seconds he does what John Joseph wasn't able to do for many years. However, John Joseph has another band, and I think he's doing this now. He's got a band that he's had for on and off called Blood Clot, and that had Todd Youth in it. And they're doing something now. But what's interesting, it's like, why didn't you ever do anything when you had the Cro-Mags name? Like, it's just, I don't know. I find that interesting. Maybe he knew on some level that it wasn't, or maybe it had to do with the fact that, like, it was one thing to perform as the Cro-Mags. It would be another thing to try and write music as the Cro-Mags. And when it was something that he hadn't done before, he hadn't written music as the Cro-Mags, he just written lyrics. That's not to say, I'm really diminishing the legitimacy, not legitimacy, how important lyrics are. I mean, lyrics are a huge component of the music and a song, right? Like, yes, you can have instrumentals, but part of a song is its melody and its lyrics. It can't be understated. So I don't want to take away from the fact that, listen, if you're contributing lyrics, that is contributing to the writing of a song on some level. So yeah, but he said in this article, Parris was like, yeah, John Joseph, he came to me, like we went out, we had some coffee or something. They were somewhere. He's like, I want you to come back. I want you to team up with me as the Cro-Mags. We'll do a new album. And Parris, I guess John Joseph had said some very negative things about Parris. And he was like, look, I'm not doing, Parris had terms and conditions before he'd even consider it. And John Joseph was flabbergasted, and that sort of ended that thing. So Parris has just been happy to do his aggros thing. And he's just been off doing that. And we just talked about that. So now I think that sets the stage for what's happened now. So Harley gets out, he takes him to court, and he fights in the court, and he gets the name back. I mean, it's just one of those long sordid tales of just like people, like these people just cannot get along, like at all. Like none of these guys. Harley doesn't like John Joseph. John Joseph doesn't like Harley. Parris doesn't like Harley. Parris doesn't like John Joseph. John Joseph doesn't like Parris. John Joseph does, like, they all do not like each other on some level. I don't know where Doug Holland fits into that, but he fits into that, I think, somewhere. Maybe he's more neutral. He's more neutral on the outside or something. Now, Harley in recent years, once he secured, and here's what's interesting too. I think Harley has really sort of he's really sort of like seen what can be with Glenn and Jerry. And so around maybe before, definitely before, but especially after 2016, when the Misfits reunited, right? When the Misfits reunited and were playing, these big shows and commanding these huge guarantees. I mean, Harley was opening for him. I saw him open for them at something. And I think Harley just was like, damn, dude, like what are we doing? Why all of us are alive, all of us are functioning, we can all play music, we're all in good condition. Why aren't we just making loads of money playing Age of Quarrel when we could be? And I'm sure they could get, I mean, that is definitely a hugely high in demand reunion, and there's a lot of money to be made if one's object and goal is to make a lot of money. And for whatever reason, those guys cannot get on the same page in any kind of way. Harley's made some very public attempts. He does it on Facebook or whatever. He always says, I absolutely would extend the olive branch, in the name of Harley says in the name of making all the fans happy, which of course is true, but is really sort of another way of saying, like, we stand to make a lot of money. I'm not saying Harley's in it for the money. I'm not saying any of them are in it for the money. I'm just saying clearly they're not, because if they were, then they would be together playing those shows. But the point is that that's kind of like there's an asterisk above. There's like a little star above above that phrase, making all the fans happy and getting paid really, really well to do so. That kind of thing. And they just can't do it. John Joseph refuses, and John Joseph plays it off like, that he's being that he wants nothing to do with Harley after what happened in 2012 backstage at the CBGB festival, which brings us, I think that kind of brings us up to date. So Harley does have, his newest version of the Cro-Mags, whatever you want to call it, however you want to call it, Harley's Cro-Mags, the Cro-Mags or Cro-Mags. Harley is the sole trademark holder of the name Cro-Mags. And he has guys, Rocky George, who used to be in the Cro-Mags. He's got this guy, G-Man Sullivan, that dude. He's also in the Cro-Mags. He's got some new guy in the Cro-Mags. And they've been recording. With Steve Zing, Trick or Treat Studios. Steve Zing, engineer and co-producer. I forgot who the other co-producer is. There's somebody else. I think. And just been doing, they did an EP, I think, and now they're doing an album. Lots and lots of stuff. Harley's got a documentary, and now he's out there touring, really doing his, some big touring for the first time, because there was obviously 2020 sort of took everybody for a loop and put everybody on the side. Now, part of the settlement of this lawsuit, and we're going to take a look at all of these things in just a moment. Part of the settlement of that lawsuit for the name Cro-Mags was that John Joseph and Mackie, they still had dates as the Cro-Mags that they were contractually obligated to. And so until those dates were completed, they were legally allowed, the judge ruled that they were legally allowed to perform as Cro-Mags JM for John Joseph and Mackie. It's a really stupid name. I think everybody across the board, I think Harley Flanagan thinks it's a stupid name. I think John Joseph must think it's a stupid name. I think Mackie must think it's a stupid name. And I'm sure Parris must think it's really, really stupid name. But that's what they have to call themselves. Why do they can't call themselves like Cro-Mags JM, which I know that John Joseph has used in the past? I don't know. I don't get it. I don't know, man. I don't know. That's just the way it is. But that's what has led to the most recent crop of trouble as the quarrel continues. But first, let us take a quick commercial break for a moment to talk about RIOTstickers.com, our official sponsor. We're powered by RIOTstickers.com. If you need shirts, if you need buttons, if you need banners like the one behind me, if you need stickers, especially if you need stickers, vinyl stickers, go to RIOTstickers.com.